Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Debrief. Geo, how is oneself?
I'm okay. I was sad last night, Charlie. I was sad and a bit frustrated this morning when discussing everything on the player ratings, but I'm okay again, and I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday. I think this is going to come across quite harsh to Burnley, but I'm pleased we've got Burnley at home and it's not away to Liverpool, for example. My optimism has returned reasonably quickly for the next fixture ahead.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was watching while I was making thumbnails last night. I had the opposition preview that's going up tomorrow. I guess it would be that you did, and I think you said the same thing towards the end. But for those of you watching, I would suggest you watch it because it probably fills you with more confidence than you need after last night. Because yeah, I think last night was it was a difficult one. It was a game where I felt I was okay with how we were approaching it, and I felt like let's load our way into this. Let's figure it out. Let's see how we're going. Let's not be too hasty. Let's be a little bit conservative because we're away from home in Europe and all that sort of stuff. And then as the second half went on, I felt like we got better. I felt like we were creating more chances. And I said on the watch along, there was something about the fact we were creating more chances and we maybe even arguably should have scored that made me feel like, oh, we're not going to score here. I don't know what it was. There was just something in the back of my mind that just went, oh, I'm a bit concerned here. And yeah, I was a bit shell shocked when they scored, to be honest. And I'm still a bit confused by the whole thing. Just watching the goal go in, I'm just like, how's it even happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think either side scoring was probably going to come via something individual, whether it's an error at the back
Sure.
or a wonderful piece of attacking play from one person in particular for a moment. And I think that's what happened. It begins with Edson Alvarez giving the ball away poorly in the middle of the pitch, and it ends with Kurt Zuma wandering away from his man for no reason, and he ends up with a tap in. And it's a good striker play, I guess, good positional play to put yourself in that. I think he's waiting for a rebound from Fabianski rather than a poor shot, but it happened and it went in, and we didn't have our moment. Bowen and Kudus both tried something, but they weren't able to do that exceptional piece of individual brilliance. And I think the game was lost by lack of substitutions, truth be told, Charlie. I think
Yeah.
the game plan was okay. It wasn't anything magnificent, but I think it's what we expected. And while it was a dull affair for the first hour, there wasn't much between the two sides. And when I said to you at half time, I felt there was a goal in the second half. I thought there was going to be us that pinched it, but I had that feeling of someone's going to nick this. Who's going to do it? And I think there was a couple of easy subs Moyes could have made, and that's the most frustrating thing for me, that we didn't do any. When we did do one, we were 1-0 down. Had that sub been made at 0-0, I think it would have been fine, but not so much when we're trailing.
Yeah. Good afternoon, by the way, to Rob, to Times Podcast, Alex, to Percy, to Cyclops. M. Collingwood saying, I thought we didn't get out of second gear, which was enough twice, but not this time around. And Cyclops sort of backing up what you're saying. I was okay with a cautious first half, but they were there for the taking. And I think that's the thing with me. I think even I, who am more pro David Moyes than some other people, for example, I find his substitutions at times the most infuriating thing in the world. And I feel like you say, yesterday was definitely a moment where Cyclops saying they were there for taking. I agree, and I think I agree with you. There was subs there to be made that probably should have made a lot earlier than they were, and I feel like as the second half got underway, and actually I was wrong. That was one thing I should say. Is at halftime we spoke about Paqueta moving into the centre, and I was against it in general. I think we both agreed with the fact that it wasn't quite working for him out on the left. It wasn't quite working going forward for the team, so we needed to do something. But I was concerned that moving him to the centre would sort of lessen, well, his effectiveness. It would completely kill James Ward-Prowse. It would completely kill Emerson and stuff like that. And although some of those things did happen a little bit, I think what it meant is when Bowen drifted out to the right, all of a sudden they were able to sort of double team on their left back, who was dealing with Kudus relatively well. That made them both more effective, gave them both more space, and then that meant who was the person stepping into that space was Paqueta, who can kind of do some sort of semblance of centre forward like things occasionally, as opposed to what it would have been, I guess, James Ward-Prowse, who that's not really his bag at all. I felt like that worked, but it was a case of like we should have looked at that and gone, right, this is working. How can we supercharge this? Let's get Antonio on maybe on the left or up front, or do something else where you can move people around. There was stuff that you could do earlier in the game, which would have meant, right, we can step to this without really sacrificing any of the defensive stuff that we were doing. So in that sense, they might have still scored, but we could have had a better chance to really go at them as opposed to banging our head against the wall when it wasn't working. And look, we did create some chances, and I did think we should have scored, but in hindsight, it's difficult not to look at these things and see them as a missed opportunity, because that I agree with Cyclops. I think that game was just patently there for the taking.
Yeah. Ralph said he doesn't watch the games anymore. It's just background noise to him. He doesn't expect changes, doesn't expect football, doesn't expect anything more. He just wished David Moyes would go. Percy said it all felt a bit meh, very meh. The players chosen looked positive, but we just seemed to wait for someone to do something special. Hello to Phil, hello to Graham, who said it was another Moyes masterclass. Will said they deserved the win. We just wasn't good enough. Yamka said that I thought they were poor in front of goal, shooting from outside the box. Simon said it was a frustrating performance across the whole team. Typical Moyes tactics scuppered by sloppiness. Too much respect paid to poor opposition. Only positive now is we have to set out to win the home tie. Adrian's the same as Ralph. Ended up doing a batch cooking with the game on in a different room. Definitely a CFAX team these days. Cyclops thought we looked tired as the second half went on. The subs were needed earlier, and Percy was just saying that his subs are the same. They even come across pre-planned, no matter what this score is.
Which is probably accurate some of the time.
Yeah, the Calvin Phillips was always going to be the first sub last night. It worked on Saturday against Everton. If we needed a goal, Phillips was going to come on and push Souček forward. If we needed to hold on to the game, Phillips was going to come on to pack out the midfield. Calvin Phillips was always the number one sub last night, and I didn't disagree with it, by the way. And I know the Don Hutchinson saying it was a negative sub and we're going to go down. We're like trying to not go 2-0 down. I disagreed with that because of what happened at Everton, which was Phillips came on and we moved Souček further up the pitch and we got a goal off it. I actually think for Moyes, that is an attacking change. What he's trying to do there is get a goal scorer in Souček further up the field. It should have been done a lot sooner, I think, that sub, the Phillips for either Ward-Prowse or Paqueta. I think Paqueta was horrific last night, Charlie. And I'm not concerned by it. He's just come back from a month and a half layoff and he's played 3 games in 11 days. It's a big ask for him. So I'm not concerned by his 2 poor performances on Saturday and on Thursday. But last night I thought he was bad. I thought he lost his head and I thought he was absolutely knackered. And he should have come off a long time before he did. I think Ward-Prowse would have been an easy sub to make, given that he was pretty much playing left wing. And I think with Phillips and Antonio on the bench, I think there's 2 easy substitutions to bring on. But 81st minute and then 3 minutes to go. What chance did they have, really? And I think the answer is not very much.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I mean, we're not... It's one of those ones where I think frustration is just the feeling as well, as opposed to anything else, or mild disappointment. Because, look, 1-0 is easily turnaroundable at home. I mean, realistically, they're going to come and do basically what they did again. They'll sit tight. And when I say they, I'm talking about Freiburg. I know everything I'm about to say could very easily describe a David Moyes West Ham side. I'm describing Freiburg here, but they're going to be sitting. They'll sit deep. They'll sit tight. They'll try to hit us on the counter attack, and that's about all, because they'll be coming in with the mindset of, look, we're already 1-0 up today. That's all we need. You're the people who need to step to us, and it is going to be on the likes of Paqueta really to make it happen. And I think even yesterday, where I agree with you, he wasn't that good. There were still times where. There were still those moments where he was just sort of instrumental to something and then nothing would come of it. Like there was a moment where I remember I think it was I can't remember what half it was, whichever one we were shooting right. I don't remember which half that was. But he held the ball and he was literally holding off 2 separate players. A third one then comes towards him to try and nip the ball off him. And then he's holding it, and then just lays it off to Emerson, who has the space. But instead of us then streaming forward from that moment and Emerson streaming forward with the ball from that moment, there was just another Freiburg player there just to stand in front of Emerson, who then sort of stopped, thought about it, passed it a different direction, as opposed to that would usually be West Ham are on a counter. West Ham are going now, and it was like, okay. Well, we'll wait a second, and that was the difference I think last night between us and other great performances we've had. It's just we didn't have that step up. I said to you at halftime, I felt like I didn't feel like Freiburg had many levels to. I didn't feel like they had another level to step up. Whereas I felt like we had several. We did step up one. We created more chances in the second half that were bigger chances. We arguably should have scored, but we didn't really put it on them in a way that we should have. Which means I'm sort of here not like distraught or anything. I'm just sort of like, okay.
Yeah.
Because we've done this in Europe before, you know. We've been in this position where
against
we've gone
better teams, though. Sevilla was a much better side than Freiburg.
Yeah, which is mildly concerning to me. Not that we're doing it against worse teams, just that I'm like, Freiburg are probably going to be a lot happier to sit deep and sort of try and stop us and stifle us.
Fraser says we definitely weren't great, but I think we deserved a draw, especially with that penalty shout at the end. Very surprised we didn't get that. Thunder said maybe Moyes should put his boots on and score Bowen and Paqueta's great chances. If we put those in, no one says anything. The moaning fans are getting on his titties. Sharky's catching us on his lunch break. He said the game was a bit of a bore fest, while Adrian said it's been come for a while, home and away for 20 years. Only been to the bowl once and a handful of away games each year. It used to be everything to me as well. Nick said he missed the game. He was listening to it on Talk Sport, and the female commentator was slagging West Ham off for the entire first half. Jimmy said, I can't even get angry anymore. It's very predictable. Find myself staring dead-eyed into the screen, waiting for the loss to come. Simon says Zuma's situation needs addressing. Clearly not fit to play. And Lucas had said, still confident we'll progress to the next round. And I do feel there's been quite a bit of optimism from most people, despite the defeat last night. I do feel a lot of people are still optimistic we will advance to the quarterfinals, and I am. I have to be honest with you, I am. Freiburg weren't good last night. It's not like we rocked up and got played off the park. It was a tight game, evenly balanced. Who's going to take their chances? We didn't. They took one. That's it as far as I'm concerned. There wasn't much separating the two sides. I don't think we deserved to win, but I'm not sure Freiburg deserved to win either, truth be told. I think there wasn't much between the two sides.
I would agree with that. I would agree. Have you changed your mind on the penalty stuff? I mean, we spoke about it. You obviously spoke about it during the review. I spoke about it on the phone with you after. But
I would still be aggrieved that was given against West Ham. That's how I always view it. Everybody views it as different ways, don't they? Some say if it's a free kick, it's a pen. I'm not sure I agree. I know the letter of the law it should be, but I'm not sure about that because there's some things free kicks get given for, which would be horrific if that was given as penalties, you know, like small little niggly tugs of a shirt or something like that. It's not in the rules, but it's an unwritten rule, which is you get away with more stuff in the box. You just do. And, you know, grappling at corners and stuff like that. Like if a player takes a shot and a defender clatters into him a second later, it's not pen. It's just accepted. That's like, well, you had your shot. The defender tried to block and took you out. But if a player did a pass in the middle of the pitch and got clattered into a second later, it's a free kick and probably a booking. Right? So there's a big difference between what's allowed in the 18-yard and what's not. And so my rule of thumb is, how would I feel that was given against West Ham? And I'd be majorly pissed off if that was given against us. I was a bit annoyed about the one against Kurt Zouma at the weekend, which I think wouldn't have been as harsh as that last night. What was the guy meant to do? Is his arms in an unnatural position? Kind of. I don't think it's completely unnatural, as everybody says. Oh, you know, do you walk around with your hands above your head? But he wasn't walking. He was leaping to try and block Thomas Souček shooting. And naturally, your arms do come up when you make that sudden forward movement and you're at a stretch. Your arms do also naturally stretch out. So I think there is an element of sort of natural position about it. They're just high. So I'm not aggrieved. I think part of the reason I'm not aggrieved is like I think the referee was okay by and large during the game, and also I didn't think we deserved it. So I think maybe that plays a part into it. But at the time I thought it would have been lucky. I'm more surprised that the referee didn't overturn it more than anything else. But UEFA's different to the Premier League.
Yeah, I think we've all sort of collectively forgotten what the term unnatural position was meant to be about in the first place. Like, to me, that's a way of judging whether or not the player is going to try and touch the ball with their hand or is like unlikely to have touched the ball with their hand with some sort of purposefulness to it, as opposed to just his
Do you
arms
know what's
happen to be
wild
there.
though, in regards to that? Defenders these days have to defend with their hands behind their back. That
Yeah,
is the most unnatural hand position I've ever seen.
yeah. But if it hits the hand, then that's fine.
But it's
It's fine.
unnatural.
I know. It's like the way I think about it is his hands might have been in a quote unquote unnatural position if you want to argue that, but they weren't in an advantageous position. They were like up here. He's not thinking, oh, the ball's gonna be above my head in about 2 seconds time. Like he's not thinking that. He's just sort of where he is. Yeah, I would have been. I said it all throughout the watch along when it was happening for the 4+ minutes or whatever it was where we were sitting waiting for that to happen. I didn't think it was a penalty. I thought it would have been ridiculous if it was a given one, to be honest, because
Simon says, can't get too upset by a pen call because the whole handball situation is a mess and very subjective. Well, let's put it this way. The referee on the pitch said no pen. The referee with the video replay said it probably is a pen. You want to go look at this. And the referee looked at him and no, it's definitely not a pen. So you almost had two professional referees disagreeing is whether there was a penalty or not. If we had the VAR guy, we'd have got that probably. But we didn't. We had the guy on the pitch. I quite like a referee. I've seen some people say the referee bottled it. I completely disagree. I think the referee's shown a lot of bottle to stick with his original decision. I think it's easy.
I think if anything, it's the exact opposite. Yeah,
blame the guy on VAR to some extent. Jimmy says we shouldn't be relying on a late penalty. We should have had a goal by then. Mark says Souček had handled it before scoring. It wouldn't have counted. Neil says we need to move on. If we need luck to get through them, we're still crap. It's a match review, to be fair, Neil. We're going to discuss it. It's kind of the video. Paul said, I applaud the ref in sticking to his original on-field decision, so he had some balls. Gaz says he didn't feel everyone else's confidence in the second leg. There was a lot of confidence about for the Bristol City game, and look how that went. And yes, I'm still grumpy. You can be grumpy. Don't let anyone say you can't. And George makes a really good point. With the kickoff being early, the atmosphere is going to be worrying, and we don't exactly break road blocks. I think that is a big contributing factor. Also, the ticket pricing from the club's horrific. I've seen some tickets for like 70 quid and stuff, and it's a 5:45 kickoff. But this is where the club, because of what they did pre-draw, they basically said to season ticket holders, buy your ticket now and you'll get a discount. It's going up. Depending on who we get on the draw, the price might go up. So it's almost like a threat from the club. So obviously, we got AC Milan. Well, hey, we're charging more. Anyone that got the early bird ticket price, you're in here. But as soon as we got Freiburg, the club had already put themselves in a difficult situation, which is, well, how do we price this? Have they not sold any tickets and we got Freiburg? I'd imagine they'd have made that cheap as chips for Thursday. 5:45 kickoff against a team we've already played. Make the tickets cheap, get everybody in, get that place filled up. But because of what they've done pre-draw, they put themselves in a corner now because they can't undercut the early bird ticket that they offered season ticket holders and threatened season ticket holders with. So they almost had to stick with their original pricing point, which is far too expensive for what the tie has turned out to be, which is Freiburg at home. So I think George is bang on there with the kickoff being early, the atmosphere, and the fact that Freiburg's going to rock up and know that a clean sheet means they're in the quarterfinal of the Europa League. So it's difficult one. I don't think the club have helped.
I feel like, and I do feel like there's just a fundamental difference to, for example, Sevilla and this in terms of just the atmosphere and vibe. Like, I do feel like there is not the same, I don't know, maybe it's harsh to say, but I don't feel like there's the same sort of, that's the word I was going to look for. I don't think there is at all. I didn't know it was an early kickoff. That's just going to only compound the issue. But that does worry me a bit now. I didn't know about any of this. This is now, I mean, I expected the appetite and all that stuff. I didn't know about the early kickoff and that kind of stuff. It is what it is. It is what it is. I think the other big point for me, I think, from last night's game was just Bowen. I thought we weren't on point anywhere, but I think it only serves like the substitute thing more, like we were talking about earlier. Just the idea of like, he just was not at races at all. Like, it just wasn't happening for him. I felt like there was one or two moments in the second half where it actually started to happen, and that was when he wasn't, well, notably, it was when he wasn't in the centre forward position having to try and beat centre backs. It was when he was drifting out wide and then cutting in onto his left or like dribbling into space, not at people. I still felt he was really tentative to like take people on. I don't know why. It just seemed like to me every time he stepped up to someone 1v1, there was like you know that thing wingers do, right? Where you get little touch, little touch, little touch, bang, burst of pace, they're through. Whether it's a burst of pace to try and get past them, whether that's a burst of pace to just put it onto a foot and cross it in or shoot or whatever it was, that kind of thing. It just felt like
What's
there
the
was so many times
terminology?
where
There
it just
must be
wasn't happening.
terminology for that. Like, it's like encroaching
There
on
must be.
tiptoes, really. So, like for the defender, it's jockeying. They're jockeying while the attacker does that.
Yes.
So there must be a terminology for that approach by the attacking player with the ball when, like you said, they basically go tiptoeing towards the player and then accelerate quickly. There must be a term. Bear in mind, we now have terms for certain strategies and certain. You load up Football Manager these. I've not played it for a while. If I load up Football Manager now, I bet you there's at least 15 descriptive words for the number 10 role, and I've never heard of 10 of them.
Mazzala and Gache, you know?
Stuff like that, right? So that one, that common move you've just described, there must be a terminology for it.
Yeah, Raudendeuter, you know? Yeah, I don't know what it is. I know, I know it shock you. It might shock you, Gio, but I wasn't a pacey winger on the football field. I know that probably shock you. Listen, you've seen me. You've seen me play football. You've seen how lethal I am. You've seen me running. You can see this guy's got pace, but that wasn't me on a football field. You know, I was a playmaker. So that stuff I've got the terminology for. But the like little taps, the little taps and runs that I ain't got. That I ain't got. You know, but I feel like there was just something missing from the way he was moving. It just wasn't. It didn't feel like. I mean, Jarrod Bowen's not the fastest player in the world anyway. I never thought he has been. I never look at Jarrod Bowen and go, "Oh, he's going to beat his man for pace." I think Kudus could do that. I don't think Jarrod Bowen's that kind of guy. But I don't know. There was just a tentativeness to it that I wasn't. I don't know. I just didn't understand because it's usually something he can sort of do, and I don't know whether it was just because the vast majority of the game he was having to play sort of centrally and having to play with his back to goal as opposed to playing, you know, on the half turn or facing forward as you would do on the wing. But I don't know. There was just a killer instinct. I don't know what you want to call it, Gio. It was just
Well,
missing
I'll
from it.
defend Bowen in a second. Before I do, I just want to point you all in direction of SofaScore. It's the free to download app, which contains all the statistics you need. So if you're wondering who had the highest pass completion rate for West Ham last night, it's James Ward-Prowse. It's always James Ward-Prowse. Then you can find it on the app. If you want to know the average position of certain players, you want to know who lost the ball the most, how many headers did Thomas Souček win? It's 8. The answer is 8. But you can find all that on the SofaScore app. You can download it using the link in the description below or scanning the QR code, which is beside Charlie right now on your screen. You're watching on a mobile device, just take a screenshot right now. Just go on your screen. And when you go into your photo gallery, just tap the QR code. It will still work. I discovered this a few months ago. That's why I keep telling people. So there you go, Charlie. I can show you all the match statistics there. It's a really easy beginners or dummies guide to statistics in football. The app's free to download, costs you nothing. You don't have to sign up. You can start using it immediately. And if you don't like it, you can always just delete it. But there you go. Get the SofaScore app downloaded. Link in description. Right, Jarrod Bowen. I actually thought he worked hard, and I think his movement was good. I think he does struggle in that striker role on occasions. My biggest disappointment was that opportunity that Kudus presented to him in the first half, but he just, I don't know. I don't know if he misjudged it, if he wasn't expecting it. I'm not sure what he'd done. He ended up scuffing it with his studs, really, but that wasn't really like him. You know, in the second half, I thought he grew. The first half, I thought he wasn't great. The second half, I thought he grew into it a little bit more direct, especially when he started going out over into the right-hand side with Kudus, and they started doubling up down there. I liked that. His effort, which got tipped around the post, I thought was a good effort. It's just the wrong height. It's a really good height for the keeper to save. If he puts it along the grass, the keeper might struggle to get down there for it, and puts a bit of height in it, and the keeper should still do okay with it. But again, he just goes up to his defender, and then he shifts out his feet and hits it straight away, which is a very difficult skill. I felt a bit sorry for him. I do tend to feel sorry for Bowen because when he doesn't play well, it's not a lack of effort doing. It's the system's throttling him a little bit. And every player has an off day. But I tend to think with Jarrod, when he's having a poor game, he can still have good moments in that game. And there was 1 or 2 last night. Not enough, though. I think in the player ratings earlier, I gave him a 6 out of 10. I was okay with his performance. Plenty of room to improve, but he wasn't the reason that we lost
I agree.
last night.
No, don't get me wrong. I think there was just a general dysfunction to the way it was. I don't think it was. I'm not putting it on Jarabone, and I think this was one of the games where it just shows that Jarabone isn't a striker. Like he can do it. He can do a job there, but it's very much like a this will tide us over for now type situation, which is never something you want to do long term. And unfortunately, we have to do it for at least the rest of the season at this point. But yeah, well,
It's either that or he finds a way of incorporating Antonio into that. So he's got Antonio, Paqueta, Bowen, and Kudus in the starting 11, which is unlikely. Or he plays Kudus up front, or he plays Paqueta up front. He's got options. Neither of them are ideal or obvious or a guaranteed success, but there are options there for him if he wishes to change it. He's just reluctant to change. But I do find it funny that whenever we do need a goal, when it's like we're desperate for a goal, he moves Bowen to the right and Kudus to the left, as if to say, "This is how I get my goal." And I don't know. There's something funny about that. I think, well, why don't you start with that? If that's how you believe you're going to get a goal, if that's your best way of scoring, why do you not begin with that more
do you reckon it's that, or do you reckon it's what we're doing right now isn't working? Here's the next
I think it's a Hail Mary to some extent in Moyes' eyes, which is get Souček in the box, get Kudus supplying the crosses, get Bowen cutting in from the right-hand side, and hope something works. And it did against Everton. It yielded 2 goals in the end, but I think it's more out of desperation than anything. But
I know what you mean. I do think it's interesting. I mean, like Kudus, like for example with Kudus, like I couldn't see him. I actively don't want to see him playing up front. I just think it's completely the wrong thing for him. It just doesn't seem. In a team like us, we play the ball into that space. Jarrod Bowen's having to fight off people and struggling with it. Kudus is going to be worse at that, and it's also going to take away the thing he's best at, which is receiving the ball in the half turn and running at people and causing chaos in that sense. And I think if we were to put him up front, then it just seems to dampen all that. Having said that, I wouldn't have thought playing Paqueta up front would have been a good idea. And actually, I think outside of Jarrod Bowen and Antonio, it's probably the best option we have. He can hold the ball up. It does suit him playing with his back to goal. You see it when we receive the ball in defence. Like when he drops it deep into defence, he's playing with his back to goal most of the time. He'll receive the ball here, he'll stop and he'll hold 2 guys off quite happily. And somehow, I don't understand. It's not what we all would have thought the Brazilian Magnifico playmaker we were getting would be able to do. But he does. He plays with his back to goal deep, and it kind of works going forward as well. He can hold the ball up. He can get the flick-ons. He can do all those things that we need a sort of player to do. And I think that's one of the things we missed when he was away, was just the ability to switch into that mode of having Paqueta up front, and then you can, like you say, Jarrod Bowen on the right, Kudus on the left sort of thing, and then whoever's in the 10 is in the 10. It's just whether you want that to be the plan A is difficult given the fact that he's so pivotal to our build-up play from deep, and without him, there's so little of it. You know, it's easy when it's late on in a game against a team like Freiburg, who are sitting deep and will happily sit deep on a 1-0 win, because then you don't really need that much build-up play as much as you would earlier in the game when it's 0-0 and it's sort of like a bit 50-50. Then you really need it, and without Paqueta on the left, the build-up play just almost doesn't exist most of the time. I don't know. I feel like I'm just sat here waiting and looking at Michael Antonio and being like, what are we saying? Is he able to play football anymore?
That pass, but that pass he did for Jarrod Bowen, wow, sublime.
Oh, I'm not saying that. Okay, allow me to qualify what I'm saying. Is he able to play the first 75 minutes of a football match anymore? Or is this a guy?
As long as he can play the first hour.
Sure. It's just that, or is he just going to be an impact?
But the problem is, Moyes needs to substitute players when they're done. Like Paqueta, I think, was shattered yesterday for a large period of time before he was substituted. So I don't have a problem with if Antonio's only capable of going at it for an hour and then needs to sub. I don't have an issue with that per se, as long as we're willing to substitute him when he's finished. And you've got 5 substitutes now. That should be an incredible asset for a manager. And I think for some managers it is, but for our manager, it's actually a hindrance because other teams have an advantage over us because they're willing to use the 5 substitutes. And we are incredibly reluctant to do it. I'm sure we are averaging below 3 substitutes per game in the Premier League. We're still low, even using the old rules of 3 subs. So it's just baffling. Right, we'll take some more comments and then we'll finish up with Charlie giving us his thoughts ahead of the Burnley game. George says, think Antonio should start for the physicality next week. Bowen back on the wing, Kudus in the 10, maybe drop Ward or Prowse. Brendan said we need an early goal next week, so then Freiburg need to attack or not if they want pens. It'll be a long evening. Connor asked chat GPT and said there isn't a term for our encroaching, but the closest is a feint or a dummy, which is not what we're discussing. That's a move. That's part of it.
It's part of it. It's just not the little...
Yeah, the initial approach to the defender.
Yeah.
The
tease, yes.
Curse says, I will see how the players are low morale and raise my total lack of hope. But David says, Bowen loses the ball a lot. He's best running onto the ball from the right, struggles against centre-backs. Kerry, Happy Hammerette said, how poor is it we didn't have anyone to step in so we could drop Zuma. Skizzo says, one thing we didn't do last night was put any real pressure on a really nervy keeper. We did in the first 10 minutes, and he sliced out for a throw-in, and then we didn't bother for the other. It was almost like, this guy can't kick it with his left foot, so we'll let him take on to his right foot. We'll be kind. We'll be kind here at West Ham. We'll let him...
so annoying.
Jimmy said he stopped counting after Kurt Zuma gave the ball to the opposition for the 8th time. Brendan said it seemed that Antonio wanted to take that non-pen as he grabbed the ball. Not sure what I would have thought of that. Kerry said, I believe had we have brought Antonio on earlier, that would have given our attacking players more of a chance with the space created. Andy said we played our full strength side minus Areola. However, the tactics didn't match the side on the pitch. Moyes is too timid when it matters, and his job isn't on the line. Davis is saying Kudus is a better 9 than Bowen as he played it a lot, which I agree. I've seen him play at Ajax. I've seen him play at Ajax quite a bit, and for Ghana once.
Well, let me put it this way. That might be true for a different setup. For David Moyes' setup, I would strongly disagree.
Yeah. George says we can play with that same team but use the same pressing style of play against Brentford. They'll crumble if we did that. Charlie, I've got a story about crumble. If anyone doesn't want a random boring story, now's the time to disappear. Before you go, please click the thumbs up and subscribe new around here. I'll give you my boring story, and then we'll get Charlie's thoughts on Burnley, right? The other night, basically, I've had an apple crumble in the freezer for ages. Not so long it's out of date. It's been a while. It's been there. And I keep remembering about it. I'm like, oh, I really want that apple crumble, and I forget about it, right? The other night, I remembered it. So I was excited. I was looking forward to all this. Apple crumble and custard later, buzzing. So I had my tea. Thought I'll wait an hour, then I'll have my apple crumble. So I went through, put the oven on to preheat, all good. Got the crumble out in the oven. It went all sorted. These things take 55 minutes to cook. So I'm sat there, 55 minutes on a clock, thinking it's ready now. Well, it was 50 minutes because I thought I need to go get that custard on a low heat for 5 minutes, right? So I went through. I went through. Got the pan out, got the custard in the pan and all that. I was excited. Anyway, heated up the custard. Time for the crumble. Open the oven. Normally get a waft, don't you? Heat. No waft. So, what have I done? Anyway, the oven broke. During cooking the crumble, so it was half cooked. It wasn't even enough to cook it. It was just, I was so sad. I was really sad.
If you don't want another boring story about cookers breaking, then please, feel free to like the video, subscribe before you go. Our oven was just completely temperamental for the longest time, and we had like 2-3 different people coming to look at it, fixing it, pulling it apart, like literally just wires all over the shop. Like I've seen inside that oven in ways that I never thought I would see inside an oven, like proper, just like taking it apart and building it back together. And then something else would break, and then someone else would come, and then something else would break, and then someone else would come. Anyway, it all seemed good, right? And one of the things it would do randomly is it would just stop cooking things sometimes. Like, for example, I had a pizza in there once, and then, like, same thing as you, pizza's done. No waft. There was a bit of waft, but I look at it and I'm just like, this pizza is just not cooked. This is just not a cooked pizza, right? So anyway, time after time, guys come out, fix it. My girlfriend's brother then came over one day, and he was like, I'm going to cook a roast. And I'm like, bold of you to make that play, but listen, I'm not going to complain. If there's a roast, let's go buy the ingredients. You do all the hard work. Fine by me. I get a roast after. I'm not going to complain, right? And he sat there, and I don't know how long the chicken had to be in. It had to be in for however long it had to be in the oven.
About an hour and a
like,
half. Yes.
But towards the end of it, I'm sat here working. Kitchen's like over there. I'm sat here working, and just in the distance, I just hear like just a what the. And I come in, I go, "You're right," and he's like, "The oven, it's just turned off halfway through cooking the chicken." I was like, "Oh yeah, it does that sometimes." And I've never seen a man look so dejected. And so he ended up just putting it in for like another like 45 minutes or whatever, because he had no idea when it turned off. So it could have been at any point. And listen, I'm not complaining. I still got technically a roast with maybe the driest chicken I've ever had in my life, Gio. Oh my
food
God.
poisoning.
Well, I managed to avoid that, but it was just...
Anyway, there you go. If you're still here after Crumble and Chicken Talk, Charlie, what are you thinking ahead of Sunday against Burnley?
It's like the watch along. I know I can't not be confident. Like I said, if you watch the opposition preview when it comes out, whenever it does, I think it's Saturday, because it will give you a lot of confidence. I think it's the right team at the right time. Burnley obviously are in horrendous form right now. They're really, really struggling, and I just look at it and think, if we need a sort of step up, this is the perfect time to face them and the perfect team to do it with. They are a team who will... Look, they're not capable. They're not really capable of sitting deep and sitting tight and stopping goals like other sides will come up against, like Freiburg are, for example. They're not. It's not their game. It's not what they're good at. And I respect them for it. But realistically, I think they'll score. I think we have the ability to be susceptible like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if they score, but I can't see a situation in which we score at least 2. So if you were asking for me for a score prediction, I would flutter somewhere between 2-1 and 3-1. But yeah, I'm pretty confident. I just can't see Burnley beating us. I can't even see them holding us to a draw right now.
Well, I hope you're correct, Mr. Walsh. I hope you're correct. My preview with Gonzo will be up later, and then my video I've done with Joe from Turfcast Podcast will be out on Saturday, although you can access it via the end slate of the preview. However, I have done a video with Joe over on Turfcast Podcast, and he put that up last night. So he's quizzing me about Moyes mainly. So you can go check that out. Just search Turfcast Podcast on YouTube, and it's there, the pre-match show it's called. So it's quite a long one, a 40-minute video maybe. But he's a nice guy. I like chatting to him, actually. So
I will say, I listened to that one after as well when I was doing the other thumbnails. Geo asks him whether or not Cornet was as offside at Burnley as he is here. So if you ever wanted to know that, I would highly recommend going and checking out Turfcast.
Real talk.
Was he as insanely offside as he is here? And the answer may surprise you.
Yeah. Anyway, Bev, we'll let you wrap this up. This is your gig.
Appreciate you all for watching. A little bit of a late one today because of doctor's appointment. There'll be a late one on Monday as well. We'll be doing it probably around about the same time-ish. Be lunchtime-ish. So make sure to come back for that. But between then, we have the preview tonight, opposition preview tomorrow, and then of course the game on Thursday, which will be here Sunday, which will be here for the entire run of with our matchday coverage. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button because it helps us out a huge amount, and we'll see you then. Cheers, everyone. Bye.